Hey, thanks so much for watching. Oh my goodness, love this series. We're doing a series on flawed heroes, heroic flaws. I love it because it gives me hope for myself. I look at these Bible characters and I'm like, hey, you know, they had some huge weak spots, some huge deficiencies, some huge flaws. And yet at the same time, God continued to help them grow and work through them. And they still had a relationship, close relationship, many of them, with God. So I look at these guys, look at these women, and think, oh my goodness, God is working on me, and it encourages me, and I want it to encourage you as well. So today we're looking at David. David, oh my goodness, he's a hero for sure, a hero of the faith, no doubt. I mean, you look at many of the things that God worked through him and how God worked on his character. You can read about kind of his emotional journey in the Psalms and the things he went through and what he felt and how he responded to those, how he interacted with God. Very, very helpful input. But let's just look at one weakness and one strength. His strength is, it says in 1 Samuel 13, verse 14b, the second half of the verse, it says, and this is Samuel, and he's acknowledging God has sought out for himself a man after his own heart. And David is called a man after God's own heart. I think that's really powerful. I would like to be known as a woman after God's own heart. And I think you might be watching saying, yeah, I'd like to be known that I'm passionate about God's heart. I think that's a very significant strength. And of course, David did many other things, setting up the tabernacle and establishing his kingdom and all kinds of amazing things. But he also had weaknesses. Of course, you probably think immediately of Bathsheba, you know, when he kind of lost the plot with Bathsheba. But let me give you just another one. Because, you know, Bathsheba was kind of in his reign when he was the king. And you think, well, you know, maybe he got better and he continued to improve. And so at the end of his life, maybe he didn't have as many flaws, or maybe his flaws weren't so significant, or weaknesses. And yet, it's interesting, at the end of David's life, he still had a weakness and a flaw. And this is it. In 2 Samuel 24, verse 10, or chapter 24, David made a census. He went to count all of Israel. And his army commander Joab said, don't do that. I think that's a really bad idea. And you need to trust in God and not trust and count the people. But David did it anyways. And in verse 10 it says, David repented and said, I have sinned greatly in what I've done. Please take away, O Lord, the iniquity of your servant, for I have acted foolishly. And even at the end of his life, David still had flaws. And I just want to encourage you, regardless of where you're at in your life, maybe beginning, middle, end, don't be discouraged with the flaws and the weaknesses that you have. We are human, which means inherently that we're imperfect. And yes, we're growing, and yes, we're maturing, and yes, we're getting better. And we want to look more and more like Christ. I like John 3:30, he must increase, I must decrease. But don't let flaws and weaknesses get so deep into your soul that they pollute and corrode your focus on Jesus, that he's the author and the perfecter of your faith. And no matter where you're at in your walk with God or your age, despite having flaws and weaknesses, God still continues to love you and want a relationship with you and want to stay connected with you. So thank you so much for watching our series, Heroic Flawed Heroes. We're going to continue this next week, and thank you so much for the shout outs and the feedback. Continue to encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Send it to your friends, because it's a great, super short, but really practical little tidbits, nuggets from God's Word and how it applies to us in our daily living. So make sure you subscribe. And thanks again. Here is, oh my goodness, here's your joke, your concluding joke for this today's lesson. So I really like this one. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up? Why couldn't the bicycle stand up? Because it was too tired. Two tires, too tired. Bicycle? I know. You're like, whoo. Don't go into stand-up comedy. You could starve. I agree with you. Thanks again for watching. Catch you next week.